Hello all, welcome to JavaScript Interview Question series. In this video, we are going to cover most important array methods like map, filter and reduce. We'll understand how these methods work, what are the difference between them. Before starting the video, if you haven't subscribed the channel, do subscribe the channel. So let's start with map. So you can use map method to iterate over the array and transform elements, and it returns new array with modifications. So let's see. So I'll take one example without map in traditional way using for loop, and after that I'll explain you how we can use map, what are the syntax and what are the issues map resolved. So let's start. So we'll take one example which is squaring of an array. So we have an array with elements 1, 2, 3, 4, and in output we want square of those elements 1, 4, 9, 16. So let's start. So to store this new array, we need to create a new array. So I'll write const new array equals to empty array, and to iterate over the array I'll use for loop here. So I'll write for, I'll start from index 0, then I'll go till array dot length I plus plus, and I'll push square of an elements inside this new array of I multiply by array of I, and after that I'll console log the new array, and let's see if it is print a new array or not. So let me save this file, let me open the terminal. Okay, and now let's run node map.js. It is printing 1, 4, 9, 16, which are square of the original array. We have done this using traditional way. Now let's see how we can do the same thing using map. For that, I'll first of all comment this line of code, and let's see the syntax how we use map. So since array is a higher order function, it is function and it returns an array. Map returns new array, it never changes the original array, and since it is an array method, we need array, and after that on that array we are going to apply map method. So I'll write array dot map, and inside this it will take a callback function, and this callback function will have 3 parameters. Let me copy paste these parameters from here. Map method itself takes one callback function as a parameter, and this callback function again takes 3 parameters: value, index and array. And value represent here the current element, which is for example 1, 2, 3, 4, and here index represent the current value index. For example, if the value is 1, then the index is 0. In the same way 1, 2, 3, and this array third optional parameter. So this both are optional parameter, current index and the array, and this array represent the original array. So let's write down the parameter. So I'll write value, index, original array, and let's console log this so we can understand properly what it's printing. So I'll write and let's run. So if I run node map.js, so if you see, the first row is printing the current values, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 these elements, and the second row printing the indexes of those elements, and the third one is the original array it is printing. So since these both are optional parameters, so we can remove this parameters. And here, if you want to do the square of an element, I'll just write return value multiplication of value. That's it. Since map method returns a new array, I'll store that inside new variable. I'll write map array, and let's console log this map array. Console.log map array. Now let me first clear the terminal and run. And again, it is printing the square of an elements. So this is how simple it is using a map function. And the best thing about map function is that since it has only one line of statement to return, so we can also exclude this return value and also this curly braces. Even we can use our map function like this when we have only one line of statement. So we don't have to return. We don't have to use any keywords like return and curly braces. And if I still run, it's going to work properly as expected. And one more point is that we can also exclude this callback from here, and we can create just one callback function. So I'll first of all write here callback, and I'll create separately in separate function callback. I'll just paste here, and if I still going to run, it's going to print the same expected output 1, 4, 9, 16. Let's compare now what are the issues we had with the traditional way of using for loops instead of map method. So if you carefully see here, we are writing extra line of code, which is this for loop. Again, we are creating a new array, whereas in map function, by default, it returns a new array. So we don't have to write it a new array, and we don't have to write any extra line of code for iterating over the array. We can also avoid writing map, and we can use traditional way. But imagine if we are doing this complex logic using nested for loop. In that case, we have to handle this indexes where there is a lot of chances of getting errors. So it is easier to use map function instead of writing manually these loops. This map will take care. And one more thing is that we can create a separate callback function and we can directly use inside this map. So even the code looks good, readable. So this is it about map function. Let's take one more example. So we have an array of strings and we want to make this string an uppercase. For example, out hello will be transformed into capital letter hello. In the same way, word will be in caps and JavaScript. So let's do it the same way we have did on the above case. So I'll just use this string array dot map, and inside this I'll have parameter callback function with parameter value, and it is going to return value dot to uppercase. That's it. And I'll store this inside a new array. So I'll write here string map, and now let's console log this string map and let's print. So it is transformed. The original array transformed to capital string of array. We have took the examples of strings and numbers. Let's take one more example on objects. So here we have an array of objects with detail of few users, and we want to return a specific property, that is names, in an array. So how we can do that? So I'll again write person array first, then on that I'll write map function, and inside that again I'll get value, and I'll just do value and I'll return value dot name. That's it. So if I want to extract a name property from this array of objects, I'll just write that and I'll console log names, console.log names, and let's print once again. So now it is printing only names, Alice, Bob, and Charlie. This is how we extract values from map. We have seen three examples. One is on arrays, then strings, and then on objects. So this is how we can use map function to transform the array elements over a string data type, object data type, and number data type. So this is it for map. So now let's start with filter function. Same like map function, filter function is also a higher order function, means it takes parameter as a callback function and it returns a new array when a specific condition is matched. So let's take one example to understand this. So we have a number of numbers array with value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have to return a new array with even numbers. So the output will be 2, 4, 6. So let's do. So I'll first of all, since filter is an array method, we need an array. So I'll write numbers array, then dot, I'll write here filter now, and inside this again we'll have callback function. Same like map function, filter function also have the same three parameters, which is current value, current index, and the original array. Here it is numbers. So since both are optional, so I'll remove here since we are not using those parameters, and I'll return here, and even don't have to write return keyword here since it's only take one line of statement logic. So I'll just write here value percentage of 2. If it is divisible by 2 and its returns equals to 0, then it means those numbers should be returned. So when this condition will be satisfied on any particular element or value, only those value will be returned. So let's store this inside new array. I'll write even and let's console log sol.log even and let's print. So I'll open the terminal and I'll write node, it's filter.js. Let me save this file first. Yeah, I'll write filter.js, and if we print, it is returning 246, which is even numbers. Now let's take once again a new example on strings. And here we have to return a string whose length is greater than 5. So I'll store this inside a new variable. I'll write new string, and inside this I'll write strings.filter, and I'll have parameter value, and I'll return by checking condition if value.length is greater than 5. That's it. If this condition satisfies, then it returns that element. So if I console log now the new string and I'll save and again I'll run this file, and it is printing JavaScript. What if I do greater than or equals to? In that case, it should also print this word keyword string since this string length is 5. So let's save and run again, and it is okay. Even hello is printing since hello is also of length 5. So I'll change it to 4 letters, and again I'll run, and it is only printing world and JavaScript. And let's take one more example on array of objects. So here we want to return an object whose age is greater than 25. Let's take greater than 25. Okay, so again I will store first. I'll write here object and write person dot filter, not fill, it's filter, and again callback function will have value, and it is going to return whose age is, so value dot age greater than 25. So it will return those objects. So and I'll console log these objects, console dot log object, and let's print again, and it is printing. Okay, we have two, it's returning 30 and 35, two objects, which is this both, since we have taken this. And if I take greater than 30, it's going to print only one object, which is Charlie. It's printing only Charlie. So this is filter function. We use filter function to apply filter over an original array, and will return whatever the specific condition we have written inside the filter function. And again here, since we are not writing return keyword here, because it's a single line of statement. If it is more than single line of statement, we can write here using return keyword. So now let's understand reduce. We use reduce function to aggregate over an array and return single value. So let's take one example. So we have an array of elements, and I want to return sum of the numbers. So the output will be 15. So reduce function will iterate over all the elements, and it will store some of the values, and at last it will return 15. So let's see the syntax. The syntax of the reduce function is little bit different than map and filter. So first of all, I'll store this inside a new variable. Since reduce is also a higher order function, means it takes callback function as a parameter. So let's write. So I'll write numbers dot reduce, and inside this again it takes same callback function with same parameters. Here we'll have value, index, and the original array. But it also takes one more parameter, accumulator. I'll write here in short form, but it takes accumulator. Here accumulator means which stores previous value. And after that, inside this we can write our logic. And after this callback function, again we'll have one more parameter, which is initial value. So since we are doing sum here, so initial value will be 0. I don't need index and array, and these are again optional, and these both are mandatory. It is required in the reduce function. So what I'll do, I'll return here accumulator, which is the previous value. Right now the previous value is pointing 0 plus the current value. I'll just write current value, and I'll return, that's it. And if I console log sum, and let's open a terminal, and if I run node, oh, I haven't saved yet. Okay, and I'll write node reduce.js, and it is printing 50. The only difference in syntax of map and filter method and reduce method is we have one more new parameter inside the callback function, which is accumulator, which store previous value, and this reduce function also takes one more extra parameter, which is initial value. So let's print both accumulator and value to see what it is printing. So I'll write console.log, and I'll write accumulator and value, and let's clear this. And again I'll write, and if you see, when we are at value 1, at that time our initial accumulator value is 0. When we are at 2, it is 1, and when we are at 3, it is 1 plus 2, which is 3. When we are at 4, which is here, our value is 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is again 6. So we had 6, and at the end, when we are at 5, the value is 10, and when all those sums are added, at end it returns 15. So if I console log sum, and if I remove this, it's going to print 15. So this is how filter function works. Let's take one more example, which is finding a maximum value in an array. So we have this array, and the maximum value is here 25. So we are expecting output as 25. So first of all, I'll create one variable to store the maximum value, and I'll write max, and inside this I'll take num array and apply reduce function here. So I'll write reduce, and reduce function will have one callback function and the initial value. So the initial value will be here 0, since we are finding maximum value. So we'll compare it with minimum value. Here it will be 0. And this callback function will have two parameters, accumulator, which stores previous value, and the current value. And inside this curly braces, I'll return by checking the condition. If the current value is greater than accumulator, then I'll return current value, else I'll return the already existing accumulator. And let's print this max value. So for that, I'll write console.log max, and if I run by clearing this first, and if I print, it is printing 25. And if in the same case, if we want to find out minimum value, I'll just change the condition from greater than to less than, and I'll change here, for example here 100, and I'll change it to minimum here, and I'm taking 100 here because for now we are imagining that 100 is the maximum number. From that number we are comparing here. So for that, I just took 100 here randomly. Otherwise, we can take int max or number max. And if I run once again, it's going to print minimum value, which is 5 here in this array. Let's take one more example, which is concatenating string in an array. So we have an array of strings and we want to concatenate all those strings into one string, and it will return hello world at the end. So again, we'll store this inside a new variable. I'll write here str, and inside this I'll have strings dot reduce, and again it will take one callback function and initial value. So it will be empty string initially, and this callback function will have accumulator and current value, and inside this I'll return simply accumulator less current value. That's it. And if I print console.log str, and if I run, it is printing hello world by concatenating. So this is how we use reduce function